doing now.
What is he doing now?
It looked like he was drinking some Stella Artois and chilling with his homeboys in Scottsdale. You know, I don't know
I
what
wonder how
he's
much
actually
money he
doing.
has left.
I don't know, but he went on a $5 million bender. He said at one point. So
How do you spend $5 million on a bender? I've been on a few, and I've never spent 5 million.
yeah, but you weren't making 50.
That's true. That's true.
Unless you were. Maybe you were, and you're just selling
No,
insurance
I
for
know
fun
I've
now.
never made 50 million. In case we're recording. Micah was telling me about. He just watched the some new documentary on Johnny Manziel. So I don't know. You recommend, yay or nay?
It's worth the hour. Yeah, it's interesting. If you're an Aggies fan, of course you're probably going to watch it. If you're not, like 90% of the other state of Texas and everywhere else, it's
Yeah,
it's worth the time. It's interesting to see all the how someone can get hyped up so quickly and then fall just as fast. So it's kind of
man, he fell fast. Whew.
he rose fast too. That's the interesting. I didn't realize you kind of forget, right? Because I was only back in 2013 or something, 14, but he rose so fast as well. Just got his chance, took advantage of it. Small town outside of San Antonio, high school quarterback, and then just blew up at A&M, right? So, but he really only had one really, really good year, which was his freshman year. Kind of interesting. His sophomore year, he was okay. The team was average, and then he went to the draft. So it's kind of a story about the football side, but then also the money side and the business side. And he noticed everyone else around him was making a ton of money, but he wasn't making jack. And then he had someone come up to him and said, "Hey, I'll pay you 30 G's if you sign all these autographs." And him and his friend just started raking in the dough.
Nice.
Yeah,
Pre
kind of reminds me of
pre.
being an insurance agent.
All right, let's see the segue. Go ahead.
No, I just thought of it, but it's like if you're at a shop that's taking all the revenue and you feel like, hey, I'm not really using all their resources, maybe it's time to look at a shop that takes a little bit of a lower cut,
Mm.
or go out on your own if you want. I didn't do that. I think there's a value in what an agency can bring if you find the right happy medium. I know you and I both left for quite better splits and revenue opportunities. So maybe we're the
Well
Johnny
done.
Manziels of insurance.
Oh, Jesus Christ. I hate that guy. Well done. Excellent segue, though. So, welcome to the Max Revenue Show. I am your host, Trey Shields, along with the Zen Master of Commercial Insurance, Micah Salas. That's your new tagline, by the way. Um,
You see this?
and in today's episode, oh, Jesus. If in case you can't see, he did the Johnny Manziel money fingers. So, yeah, I don't even know what to say about that. Today's episode, we're going to talk about drop-ins. Last night, the newsletter went out called Dynamite Drop-ins. Even if you're a scaredy cat, which I was for the first 2 years of my insurance career, I was doing CrossFit with another producer at a rival agency and was asking him how he was able to write so much. He had $1 million book, which I thought was big at the time. And he's like, "Oh man, I drop in on people." And I was like, "Oh my God, what? You drop in on people?" He's like, "Yeah, I just show up, do XYZ." And he did a lot in the limo public auto space. And basically from central Texas through Louisiana, through Mississippi, Alabama, the Florida Panhandle, he did tons of public auto. And a lot of it was drop-ins. He would fly out to Dallas and then he'd just drive around and drop in on people for a couple of days. So he did drop-ins like beyond his 3 hour window, which I thought was pretty cool. I did not write about that in the newsletter. Probably should have. Um, but if you haven't read the newsletter, go read it. It's nothing fancy, which that's the point. There is no super secret ninja trick. It's just a matter of getting off your keister and getting out there and getting some face time. So with that intro, I will turn it over to you. I know you spent the first couple of years of your insurance career with a captive agency, and y'all's whole prospecting model was built around drop-ins. So I'm going to turn it over to you and just see if you can enlighten me and the rest of us on how y'all did it, and then we'll talk about kind of what I did during COVID. Yes, I did hundreds of drop-ins during COVID, and we'll see what we come up with. So tell me what the word is.
Yeah, I did. Well, the company I was working for had something we called the business plan, and you had to follow the business plan, otherwise you'd get fired, right? So, um, so I followed the business plan and then some, and I, only really sold in the field for about 2 years before I realized I wanted to be an independent agent versus a captive. But there were some really good principles and habits, I guess you could say, I pulled. And drop-ins was one skill that I was really uncomfortable with the idea of as well. And the business planner was basically do 10 drop-ins a day, 5 days a week, 50 drop-ins, right? You have your target list created, and then you map out your territory. So you're not wasting your time like your boy up there in Dallas was doing, Derek, the drop-in guy. Map it out, which I would 100% say you should always do if you're going to do drop-ins. If you just aimlessly drive, you're just wasting a lot of time. I mean, you might get lucky, but at least be thoughtful. So what I would do is Monday morning or Sunday night, I'd look at all my calls I was going to make that week, and then I would map it out by. I had a 3-county territory. It was probably 2.5 hours from east to west. I lived central, and then I would just do zones. So I had 5 different zones: zone 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then I would in each zone in my CRM system that everyone should be using, I would attribute a number to it. It was in one of those 5 zones. And then so I knew Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and I wouldn't stick to the like Mondays is zone 1 always, but you kind of get the point. So I would look at my week, look at where my heavy drop-ins were, needed to be done, and I would just schedule, okay, Wednesday is going to be zone 1, Tuesday is zone 2, Thursday is zone 3, whatever. And so that was more like the tactical side of it. And then yeah, we were just told to drop in monthly on our accounts. So instead of calling them weekly or twice a week, whatever, it was like, hey, just drop in that month, then schedule the follow up the next month, or maybe anywhere 3 to 5 weeks if you're new in the territory and you're trying to meet people. And your first drop, you're always trying to bring something. So we were bringing swag, notepads, calendars, pens, interesting articles, whatever, right? And then just have a conversation and make yourself get familiar with these businesses that you're dropping in at. That was it. I was doing on my peak days about 30 I could do.
Jesus.
This is a lot, but I was trying to be over and above. Um, Baseline was 10, and so yeah, the reason I got out of doing a lot of drop-ins myself once I got into the independent agent side, moved to Houston, is I just started realizing phone calling was pretty effective. Cold calling was working pretty well for me. And in the bigger cities, and when I went to go upstream into larger accounts, I realized it was tougher to actually get the business owner to just come on out and say, "Hey, man, what's up? How are you doing?" Like, uh, just wasn't happening as much, right? When you're calling companies doing 50 million in revenue versus 2 million. So that's why I got out of the habit of it. I wasn't told to stop doing it. Even at the big agency we were at, the first guy I had said, "Hey, do some drop-ins occasionally." So what I started doing, I did drop-ins more of just to change it up, to keep my, you know, to keep from going bored, just making cold calls. But I still followed the same habits of like the main things are organizing your day if you're going to do drop-ins, mapping it out. Google Maps is great for that or whatever. And the second thing is to think through like what can I bring that would be valuable to leave for this person. Um, I think when you are dropping in, one of the most important things to get is their business card because they usually have their cell phone number on there. That's how I had set a few
Mm.
meetings. Also, just to talk with, if you can spark a conversation with the gatekeeper office manager and learn some more because it is unique that you dropped in. I would leave a handwritten note always. We had something called face cards. So it was like a little postcard with a picture of your face, and then you could write a note on it. And I would just leave hey, sorry I missed you. I thought you found this article helpful, right? Or next month it might be, hey, here's something on distracted driving. This could lower your cost by 10%. Whatever, just stuff like that. So yeah, I became an agent in Houston, got out of the drop-in phase. Now here's where I'm at today on it. I think the best way to do it, I've been thinking about this, is I'm an advocate of kind of calling about 5 months before the X date. Where I've come is what you should do in month number 6 is to do a drop on like your make a list of like 20 accounts within an hour radius, or 25, like a top 25. Because if you're trying to drop in everywhere and everywhere, you're going to just waste time. But I think make a list of like 20 accounts. If it's July, let's just say, and you're calling December, or you're calling January 1. In July, what I would do is make one drop on that on your top 20 accounts. And then you start calling them heavily in August, right? Over that 2 week, like we talked about during our cadences. And I would just be curious to see how that would work out. I've kind of done it a little bit this summer, haven't done it as much as I would like to. Um, so that's kind of my thinking on it. One other thing I would say is, I'm not the king of like creative drops. I think it's awesome. Like, go follow Dale Dupree and the Copier Warrior, and he has his own sales training stuff. If you guys want to do it, sign up. Like crumpled letter campaigns and like empty pizza boxes, and I think that's awesome. The only thing is, you could do all that. What I find in this industry a lot is everyone has an agent, and about 80% of who you call on just are not going to want to talk. So it's like you're putting in and so I asked myself, do I want to put in that much effort for just to even get a first meeting? I don't care to have a meeting with someone necessarily, just to meet and be like, oh yeah, we love our agent. I loved your creative drop, but I'll call you 2 years, 3 years down the road if something changes. I don't know. I mean, maybe, again, I don't know. I haven't tried it for a whole year. I would be interested if someone in the insurance industry has, like, if you strictly did drop-ins, but super creative drops, and that's all you did for a year. I would love to see if someone was willing to be a guinea pig and like see how it worked for them, like in terms of production results. Um, because we don't need a lot of wins in our industry. So on the flip side, it's like, well, what if you do all these creative drops and all you need is 1 or 2 wins a year if you do them on the right size of account? So that's where I can see, if you're arguing for that, it could work out extremely well. Um, so that's kind of my thoughts on it all.
Yeah. The one of the guys in our little mastermind chat thing, whatever, we'll call him Brad. He's only doing drop-ins, and he's new. Um, and he's been doing kind of like what we talked about in the newsletter. He's just not super comfortable on the phone, which is totally fine. Like, I don't think we're either one of us are dogmatic about cold calls. You just gotta. I think what it really boils down to, you just gotta know your numbers. Can you not hear me? Can you hear me?
I can hear you. I just put mute on my headphones because I have some wind.
Gotcha. Um, so it'll be interesting to see what he reports back. He's a new producer, and I think he's had a win or two. But basically, he's just doing the drop-in thing, and then basically opening the door with curiosity, right, around the due diligence program. Um, Shameless plug, which we talk about in the producer playbook, the step-by-step guide to building $1 million book of business from scratch. Link in the show notes. So I don't know. We'll be interested to see what he does. So as I said in the newsletter, I tend to be a contrarian at heart. And when others are zigging, I like to zag. It's easier to stand out that way. And, I think I really ascribe to that old saying where it's like, even a dead fish can swim downstream. I think, doing things differently helps you stand out, but it just helps you get into places that you would not normally get into. And so I had the bright idea during COVID that I was going to start doing drop-ins. Now, I will admit the first 6 to 8 months of COVID, I totally took my foot off the gas on all prospecting, which was a effing horrendous mistake. So, in the event of another global pandemic, whatever you do not take your foot off the gas for 6 months. That was a terrible idea. Um,
So in
but anyway,
2030,
back
be
yeah,
careful.
yeah. I don't know. Whenever Klaus Schwab and the WEF get back around to it again, um, the so I'm just gonna start doing drop-ins. So I would get up at 6 o'clock in the morning, and I would go to Krispy Kreme, and I would get like 7 or 8 dozen donuts. And after a couple of weeks, they were like, "This guy's like a raging type 2 diabetic," because I was there like every morning. But anyways, I had basically built out kind of like you, 6 to 8 routes. I don't remember, but it was basically an out and back. So it'd be like I'd hit, I'd kind of go east, right? And I would have, one maybe 30 minutes away, an hour away. So it would be like an out and back point. Um, in another career, I used to be a territory rep for a lumber distributor. So I actually enjoy the road time. I put on a podcast, or an audiobook, and I just rock and roll. I love it. I don't mind the road time at all. Um, and yeah, it got me into places where a cold call didn't get me into. Whether I had one guy flat out tell me, he said, "You know what? I really respect you for having the balls to show up here." He goes, "Because whenever somebody calls, as soon as they say insurance, I'm hanging up." And I was like, "Oh, wow, okay." Now, whether that's true or not, I don't know, but that's what he said. I still have never written that account, but at least he answers when I call. So I think they can be super effective. I mean, obviously, your old company seems to base their whole prospecting model around it. And I know that we, come across as pretty dogmatic about cold calling. But if you want to get out there and have FaceTime, I think it can be super effective. I really do. Just like with cold calling, you got to track your numbers, right? Because if you're not tracking, your metrics, your conversions, your decision maker, FaceTime, whatever, then you're really just guessing. So just like Micah talks about tallying on your sheet or whatever, I highly recommend tracking. That way you can turn the nozzle up or down based off of what kind of revenue that pipeline is spitting out. Um, yeah, I don't know. That's what I got.
Yeah, and I'll add that. I mean, I had actually at the time it was my largest account was won by a drop in at when I was an independent agent. I think my second year. I
Was that
dropped
the
in.
70 trucks, 70 commercial trucking thing?
No, no, this was a large plant contractor, and I just stopped in, and that's a nice. It depends what niche you're calling into. Like contractors, I think it can be more effective because they usually run a lean office, and then most of the employees and assets obviously are out in the field. But um, yeah, this deal, I stop in, the secretary comes out, she's like, "Oh, that's going to be so and so that handles that." I'm like, "Okay," and then I had a list of my results from some other people I've helped or something like that. And then the guy popped his head out. He's like, "Actually, I'm in charge of that." We chatted for 15 minutes, followed up with him, won the account. So, and that was probably at the time it was 75 in revenue. It kind of shrunk because our mod went way down to like a 40, but still it was a nice size account for me at the time. And like I said, get the business cards because another one I can think of that I won was another plant contractor, and I got his business card and called his cell phone right afterwards, and he picked up. But if I would have just kept calling what I had, I would have probably not have caught him, or it would have taken a lot longer. So yeah, I think hey, if you have, that's why it's important to have some targets that you really want to maybe get in front of, talk to, and if you've tried the cold calling deal for 2 months, or maybe then maybe say, hey, I'm just going to take a day and drop in at these 10. I've been calling them for 2 years now or a year. Like, I'm going to take a day and drop in at these 10, or, and then have that you work into your routine. That's how I would do it. But yeah, if you want to do 100% drop in, like our boy Brad, go for it, man. I mean, shoot, I'm open to anything that works, so, um,
The and I wrote about this in the newsletter. I just had this idea that as soon as I walked in there, that they were going to like mother F me and like get out, and everybody's going to have that little black and silver thing on the door that says no soliciting. But not one time, even during COVID, and I did not mask up because I'm not.
Well,
Anyways, another story.
you're following the science.
I'm not going down that rabbit hole. But anyways, I would walk in without a mask during COVID, and I didn't have one person kick me out, not one. And so it's a lot. Like I've honestly had way more um, resistance in cold calling than I've ever had in drop-ins, and it just goes back to whether we're emailing or cold calling or drop-ins or direct mail, whatever. They can ignore an email or mail, right? A cold call, they actually have to talk to you, and so they'll tell you no. But when you drop in face to face, you'll be surprised. This guy that was a hard ass on the phone that might act like a real tough guy, when you show up there face to face, it is really hard. Like they're a tough guy on the phone, but when you show up face to face, you earn this level of respect. They just don't talk to you that way. You know what I mean? Everybody's a tough guy on the phone, but you walk in there, be presentable. Um, Ask them if whoever is available, or if you happen to walk in and that's them right there. Hey, Jeff, I was in the neighborhood. Just want to stop by, introduce myself. I know you're super busy. XYZ. You know, um, it's just not scary. Kind of like when I first got into the sales. I don't know. After I got done playing pro ball, I was probably 24, 25. They handed me a phone book and a phone and said, start calling businesses. And I remember I sat there and looked at that phone for an hour. I was scared to death. Like I had, I had pitched in front of tens of thousands of people, and that wasn't a big deal. But calling Charlie down the road at XYZ Incorporated, that scared the shit out of me. And then literally after I made the first couple of calls, I was like, oh, this isn't bad. And I'm here to tell you drop ins are the same way. You just got to get over that initial barrier. It's just so not a big deal. It's really not. So I highly recommend mixing it into your prospecting. And I think, we've talked about writing a book on prospecting, and I think that we should really think about honing a system. And maybe we can use myself and you as guinea pigs, but some coming up with some type of mix of both, and then even some cold email. I think we should try to hone a system to where we're making those dials and getting the volume, but also being strategic about our top 25 or our top 30 or whatever it is, and mixing in some drop-ins, and then building some type of framework around that, because Lord knows I really could have used that when I first got started. And if you're going to choose, I don't think you have to choose between one or the other. I think you can do both. It just needs to be a system, like what we talked about today on the LinkedIn post. You don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. And we need to come up with some type of system or framework for prospecting that we kind of hang our hat on.
Yeah, no, I agree. And the whole fear thing, yeah, it's the same whether you're cold calling, dropping in, it's all the same. People are never that bad as we make it out to be in our own heads. And it's funny, I didn't ever thought about this, but I was doing drop ins in a very rural Wisconsin territory. And
Sheboygan, baby, holler at me.
yeah,
My
actually
old
funny.
stomping
Yeah, funny.
ground.
Yeah, we probably ate the same Jimmy John's and didn't even know it. Um, and it's funny. I had to wear a suit and tie every day. I had these
Did you really,
pleated pants, and yeah, just
bro?
so I had these Joseph A.
You were
Banks
driving
suits.
around Wisconsin in a suit with pleated pants?
Oh, dude, this was 2012. I mean, give me some break. I don't know if they were out of style back then. By the way, if you're listening to this and wearing pleated pants, you know, especially if you're in your 60s, 70s, and you want to try to revitalize your career, maybe drop the pleated
Mm-hmm.
pants.
Yeah,
But
drop the pleats, bro.
and the suits altogether. But Mr. David Carruthers, he has some nice suits. I'm jealous of some of his suits. They're pretty flashy.
He
Um,
does. He goes no
but
shoes, Gucci slippers too.
no socks. Yeah,
No
look,
socks.
it's a slick look, man. Um, so we talk about pattern interrupts. So I was wearing a suit walking into these businesses. I'm talking doing like 500,000 in sales, a million, small contractors mainly. So there were some bigger ones, but and I was thinking back and I'm like, I was probably just being a pattern interrupt myself, just by showing up in a suit, So
Well, now you're kind
yeah,
of
we
the
talk
inverse of that because you like stroll up into these big contractors with like a pair of Lululemon, pants and your Travis Matthews polo.
pretty much. Yeah. No, I mean I do. Boat shoes and yeah, but it's interesting, how that all works. To stand out is I think really important, and you can try to stand out even if you're just doing drop-ins like you said, Trey. You can stand out by just who you are. Maybe you're naturally just outgoing, gregarious, have a mustache, 6'8", whatever. Well, then dropping in maybe is a little bit of a, not saying you should only do that, but maybe work it in a lot more, to your approach if that's your strengths. Or if you, like I said, the whole Dale Dupree stuff, if you love that creativity side of things and you just think that's fun and that keeps you excited, go do that, man. Like, go have some fun. Like, think of some creative drops that you could do around that. I thought of one idea where I wrote that book, so that kind of has been what I've been using for drop-ins. But I thought of doing like a box of chocolates, like just an empty box of chocolates, order on Amazon, put the book in there, then leave it for John or Sue or whoever. And when they open it up, have a little note like, life's like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get. Sorry you didn't get chocolates this time. Instead, you got stuck with my book. Hey, if I can grab 15 minutes, I'll bring real chocolates to you. So that was kind of the
Yeah.
thinking. And that's the whole concept, is like, those are the ones that have been pretty effective, like the pizza box or whatever. It's like, hey, I know you were shocked by this. If we meet, I'll bring you some, not a half-eaten cookie, but a full cookie or something like that. So, we've all heard of the shoe one where you leave a shoe, one shoe, and hey, if we meet, I'll bring the other shoe, trying to get my foot in the door. Yeah. So, I mean, do it what works. Have fun
I
with
was
it.
thinking about, instead of doing the shoe thing, of just doing like a severed foot. So it's like real shock and awe, where it's like it looks like a severed foot off of a corpse, and sending that and being like, "Hey, just try to get my foot.
Dude, try it, man.
Give me a call and I'll hop on in with the rest
Report
of you."
back to us. Report back
Yeah,
to us. I'd love to
no,
hear that works out.
yeah, that wouldn't go well.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
I did a bunch of crumpled letter stuff. Never did any of the pizza box stuff. I will say, there was this guy at our old agency. You would know who he is. And you've probably heard this story, but I guess he got into it with like the gatekeeper one time at one of these places, and it got kind of heated. So then he literally sent a cake to the gatekeeper, and I guess it was a cake with a huge hatchet in it, and it was like, "Hey, just wanted to bury the hatchet." Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. I never heard that story, but that's a great use of a drop, man.
That's
That's
silly.
awesome.
Um,
Oh, speaking
but
of
no,
which,
go ahead.
crazy, dude, you just, my mind just like flashed back to the craziest drop-in story I ever had. I don't know if I'll tell it. I'll do it justice by telling it. So, speaking of Sheboygan, Wisconsin, there was this old little machine shop there. I always drive by it. And I think I'd see this old guy out there. He looked like an alcoholic, like a drunk, but kind of like around the outside. And
No
anyways,
judgment.
when you're doing 30 drop-ins a day, like, you're going to just drop in at some sketchy places sometimes. And you drop in at people's homes or whatever because that's where their business address was. And so this deal, dude, I was like, knock on the door, I open it up, no one's in there. It's like a little old machine shop. Anyways, this guy comes out, he starts talking to me, and we sit down, dude. We're having a conversation. I'm just sitting across from him, probably 5 feet apart, just like this. And he seemed a little bit off, but not that crazy. Anyways, dude, I'm not joking you. All of a sudden I said something, and it was like he had a flashback to, I don't know if it was to Vietnam or just something. He grabs me by the freaking arm, dude, as hard as he can. He's like, "Get the fuck out of here." He's like, "What the fuck?" And he starts going crazy, dude. I'm like, "What the fuck, dude?" Sorry for the F bomb. This is just real talk. And I was like, "Dude, what the hell, man?" He's screaming. He starts screaming as we, "Get out of here, blah, blah, blah." I don't remember everything he said, dude. I like got out of there as fast as I could. I was like, what the hell, man? Like I thought I was gonna
No,
like,
you don't know. You don't
whew.
remember what the trigger was or anything.
That's what's crazy. We were just having a conversation. We'd already been talking for at least 5, 6, 7 minutes. Sitting down, he invited me to sit down, and then just, dude, I said something, and he just flipped, and I'm like, holy crap, dude, what is going on, man?
You were probably like, yeah, my boss Charlie. He said, and he like, Charlie, what the
I don't know, and I
Charlie's
don't even know if he
everywhere.
and I don't even know if he was a veteran dude or like what he was. Like I don't know his backstory. So I don't even want to say it was like a flashback to that, but it was like a trigger, and that's all I could think of. I was like, I must have said something that triggered him. And then I would drive. I'd always drive by this his building, and so I'd drive by and I would just see him like he was just like outside like shaking and stewing. I'm like, dude, but you know how your heart's like, you're like, I got to get out of here, dude. Like I got to save my life, man. And you're like running out as fast as you can. I forgot about that story until we were just talking right now. So maybe that's why I don't like to do drop-ins anymore.
Yeah, that's true. So I have
Oh,
I have two stories for you along those lines, and then we'll cut it off. So number one, I mean, I don't live like in a super affluent neighborhood, but I mean, we live in a middle class, upper middle class neighborhood. Like nothing super fancy, but it's relatively nice. Uh, I, that sounded terrible. Like I don't. You're laughing at me. I don't mean it in like a pretentious way. You'll understand the context in a minute. But there's a guy, and he is a Vietnam vet, and he lives a couple blocks away. And poor guy, I mean this with no judgment, but like he's lived there for, I don't know, 40, 30 something years. When my wife, who grew up 3 or 4 blocks away next to this guy, she would come out of the house and like he'd be bear crawling in the ditch. Like this
jeez.
guy had some serious flashback stuff. And then even now, like 30 years later, we live in the same neighborhood. I've never seen him bear crawling in the ditch, but like his shades are down. Dude never comes out. You never see him. Feel bad for the guy. Obviously appreciate his service, but good lord.
Yeah.
Um, secondly, I'm trying to decide whether I want to share this or not. It's a drop-in story, except not insurance related. I
Did you get hit on?
no.
Because that happened to me
It's
probably like 5 times
okay.
in
Okay,
my
I feel you.
year-long career as well. That was always
I guess
uncomfortable.
I will share it because I've already gone this far. So when I was in Wisconsin, while you were in Wisconsin, um, I was doing. I was a territory rep for a lumber company, but I was also flipping houses on the side. And so, if you see those little signs that say like "I buy houses,"
Yeah.
in certain parts of the neighborhood, well, I was that guy. I was one of those guys. And so you would get these calls from just the craziest situations, like hoarders and like crazy divorces and dilapidated property. Like the people that call those signs they don't usually have their ducks in a row, which is
Mhm.
what you're looking for because you're trying to buy a property for 10 cents on the dollar. That way you can then, flip it, put some money into it, flip it for a big profit. Anyways, this guy calls me up. He's like, yeah, I'm looking to sell my house. I'm like, all right. We set this meeting. I show up. This dude is massive. I mean, he's 4 hundo plus, missing all of his teeth. No judgment for missing teeth. I'm still missing some of mine, waiting on those dental implants. But he's like, yeah, come on, I'll show you. And so we walk into this house. It's completely gutted, and everything looks fine. No big deal. Looks structurally sound. And then he's like, all right, let's go check out the basement. And we walk in the basement, and there's chains everywhere hanging from the ceiling. And I'm like, what the hell? And my first thought is, oh, well, this guy has pit bulls or something. And he's just like, this is where he chains up the dogs during the winter. Because he actually he lived in the house next door. This house he had bought and he was going to flip, but he ran out of money. So it's just sat there. And I assumed, oh, well, he just like ties up his dogs here during the winter or whatever. And I'm looking around, and then I see like a leather jacket. And then I look over in the corner, and it's pitch black because there's no electricity. And I look over, and there's this mattress on the floor. And then I'm like, I tell him, I'm like, what do you do? Like, to chain your dogs up here during the summer? And he goes, oh no, this was actually our love dungeon. My life partner
Dude,
just passed
wow.
away. So I was in this guy's, like S&M 50 Shades of Grey or whatever. Like, it was
And that's what he
games
that's what he
and
told you too. Who
swings
knows?
and
He's a serial killer.
leather. And I was like, oh my God, get me out of here. So, word to the wise. If you don't have a concealed carry, and you can have a concealed carry in your state, I'm not saying you should have it, but it wouldn't be the worst thing that you have. And then secondly, just make good decisions about where you choose to walk in. And for God's sake, if you are a female and you are out hitting the road, make good decisions. Oh, and here's the other thing. When I used to be a territory rep for this company, if you are going to be on the road during the winter, you need to have like an emergency kit, because if
Yeah.
you like break down and it's 20 degrees, like you can literally die out there. So, in the middle of nowhere. So I'm not trying to scare anybody, but like if you are going to hit the road, take precautions, be smart about it. We probably just scared off everybody. Like with the last 5 minutes of this podcast, it's just gone downhill in a hurry.
Just don't cold call on, weirdos.
So,
Call
anyways,
reputable businesses. Drop in at reputable companies.
yeah, they definitely work. So get out there, give it a try. It's not half as scary as you think. But with that, let's wrap it up. If you're not a subscriber to the Max Revenue Letter, go check it out, maxrevenueletter.beehive.com. Micah also puts out a bunch of awesome stuff on YouTube. He just started a new series called Diary of a New Producer, where a new producer in his office they just hired, Micah is taking him under his wing, and they're doing like a weekly. The producer's remaining anonymous, but Micah's basically getting on and doing a weekly recap, like giving him objectives, giving him things to do, and then he reports back to Micah, and Micah's kind of giving us the play-by-play as this guy basically builds a book of business from scratch. And so it's both from the producer angle, but also from a sales leader angle. So I think whichever one you are, I think it's valuable and worth your time to watch as they go through that. And then if you haven't checked out the producer playbook, it's basically our little flagship product. It's a $1.95. We just basically give you the full playbook on how to prospect, open doors, get in, how to set your meetings, how to sell with curiosity and due diligence, get out of the game of quoting. So if that's something that you're interested in and you want to learn how to sell with BORs and build a book of business, this is Micah's playbook. And I'm just a marketing guy. I just put a nice little bow on it. So yeah,
Give yourself
that's
some
the
more
deal.
credit.
You can find all the links for this in the show notes. Anything else you want to leave them with before we exit stage left after the love dungeon?
Be safe out there. That's all I got.
Oh God, this is definitely going to get us kicked off YouTube. All right, adios, everybody. Give them hell this week. We're rooting for you.